Hi, I'm Catharine Sweeney.
And I'm Elaine, Hsieh, and we're in the kitchen of Chocolatier here in Somerville, Mass. And today we're going to be making pecan turtles.
Yes, and pecan turtles, we're going to start with caramel. Okay, so the first step is making the caramel. And what I have here is I have all my ingredients already measured out, so I don't have to be thinking about that. And in my pan here, I have the cream and the butter that I'm going to bring to a boil. And one main thing to remember is making caramel is don't do it on a rainy day. Caramel loves to soak up all the moisture that it can find in the air, and you'll end up with a product that's very, very sticky and very loose and hard to manage. So do it on a dry day. Okay, so you can see now that our cream is coming to a nice boil, and don't be afraid to boil it, just bring it to a full boil. I'm then going to just flip this off, and I'm going to set this aside for now. Okay, so now I've got my pan with sugar, and we are going to melt the sugar and get rid of all the crystals that are in it. What I'm going to do is turn this on again. I'm going to add my water. That will help in much more easily melting the sugar. And when you start the caramel and you're melting the sugar, you want to start by stirring the mixture, but carefully. I'm just mixing that water into the sugar without getting sugar up along the sides of the pan. And at the point here where I'm seeing that, it's almost starting to boil, my sugar is really melting out, I'm going to add the corn syrup. Now, we're adding corn syrup to this mixture because corn syrup will help my caramel from recrystallizing. We don't want it to recrystallize. We want to keep all these crystals melted. And I'm again just going to make sure that that corn syrup is mixed in. And once it looks to me like it's mixed in, it's coming to the boil, I'm going to stop stirring. And at this point in time, I want to make sure that if I see any sugar crystals along the side of the pan, that I'm actually brushing them down so that they can combine with the boiled sugar and just melt out. Remember, we don't want sugar crystals in our caramel. It will result in a very grainy texture. We are going to let this cook undisturbed until it starts to brown. And we're going to look for just a nice golden caramel color. Okay, now, so it's starting to brown, and it always browns unevenly. So I'm just going to very slowly use my spatula to just kind of drag it through the caramel so that it doesn't actually burn in any particular spot. We want to just move it very slowly. Here we go. I've got my cream. I'm going to add that before I actually burn the caramel. And I'm going to add it slowly because it's going to sputter. And at this point, you want to just really stir. And stay back from the steam. It's very hot. But look at that beautiful, I love caramel. Look at that beautiful golden color. So at this point we have this beautiful caramel. It's not quite done yet though. I am now going to get to the thermometer stage. I have a thermometer that actually hooks onto the pan because it is hot down there. So I'm just going to clip that on. And I'm going to bring this to a temperature of 257 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I've reached my temperature. So I'm going to take it off the stovetop immediately. I can get rid of my thermometer. And at this point, I'm going to add my flavoring, which we're using vanilla. And again, this is going to splatter. So we're going to just kind of do it slowly and stir. And I'm just going to set this aside to cool. We need to bring this down to about 150 degrees Fahrenheit before we can actually put it onto our pecans.
So now what we're going to do is roast the pecans. I've set my oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have a convection oven, 325 degrees, should drop it down about 25 degrees. I'm going to take our pecans and just put it in a sheet pan. It doesn't have to be oiled or anything like that. You want to make sure it's in a single layer. So you could do that. And then you want to just pop it in the oven. Generally, you want to probably check it within the first 7 to 8 minutes, just to give it a little shake so it browns evenly. And then, 10 minutes, 12 minutes would be a good time to check it again. You don't want to burn the nuts, but it's very important that you actually roast it enough so that you get the flavor from it. I have chocolate that's melting right now over a hot water bath. Basically, you need about an inch or so of hot water. You don't want it boiling, but you definitely want to keep it sort of warm. You want to put a bowl over it and have your chocolate in there. I'm melting a dark chocolate today, which I'll be taking to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, with tempering, basically what you're doing is any chocolate that you buy, like for example, this chocolate, is in temper. So whenever you get chocolate, it's already in temper. If you're going to use it and you have to melt it, you inevitably take it out of temper. So to re-temper it, you actually have to reintroduce chocolate that's already in temper, and that's why they call it the seed. You're sort of seeding it. And what it does is it sort of makes the chocolate that's already melted go into temper. So I'm going to add my seed. And I'm going to explain to you, this I'm going to leave out for now. I'm basically going to start with my little bits so that I can take it down fairly quickly. Once it gets to about, 95, 94 degrees, if I have no more seed left in there, I'll throw in my bigger chunks of seed. The reason why is when you get to the temperature of that 89 degrees that I mentioned, it'll be much easier to take out a big chunk of chocolate than these itty bitty little pieces. I still have a little bit of seed left in there from the little chunks, so I'm going to wait before I throw in the big seed. We're at 103. So now I've thrown the big seed in, and we're going to keep sort of stirring that around. It's a little bit harder to do. We're at 95 degrees, so I'm going to take this out for a few seconds, and this way I can sort of stir more easily. Great. All right. So we are where we want to be. I'm going to take my seed out. So you can see why having a big chunk is a little bit easier than trying to fish out a bunch of little chunks. So there's my seed. Now, here's the challenge is you want to check your temper. And I have my spoon here. So I'm going to dip my spoon. I'll leave it out front here. At the same time, it takes for you to decide that it's in temper, it takes a few minutes. You actually have to do this trick where you keep it at the same temperature while you wait to see if you are in temper. Okay, so I am looking at our spoon that we dipped, and it has hardened within just a few minutes, and it's glossy and it's sort of a satiny, smooth kind of look to it. And now our chocolate is in temper.
We're back, and we've got some pecan turtles to put together. You can be as creative as you want to be with this process. You can make little ones, you can make big ones. And we're just going to put a few out here. And then I want to top it with my caramel that is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And you'll see that it will continue to spread a bit. And, you know, we're not aiming to cover the entire pecan, unless of course you want to. I like to have each piece kind of showing through so we can see the nuts, we can see the caramel, and then we'll have the chocolate on top. Now we're going to, at this point, let this just sit for a minute because this caramel is still warm. And we have chocolate that is in temper, so if that comes in contact with really hot caramel, like 150 is still fairly warm, it will bring the chocolate out of temper. So we want to wait to just cool this down, and you know, it's just small amounts, so it shouldn't take too long.
So our caramel is now cooled off enough, so we're going to spoon a little bit of our tempered chocolate on top. This recipe actually makes for about 60. We're going to show you just a few samples here up front. You know what's so nice about tempered chocolate? It just has a great look about it. You know, it's just this velvety, it's very rich looking. It really looks, when melted chocolate is in temper, it just looks really beautiful. So we've put it together, and this is what it will look like once it's tempered, has sort of hardened up. This is the finished product. You can eat it immediately if you'd like. It can also keep for, you know, since you have tempered chocolate, quite honestly, if you keep this in an airtight container somewhere cool, it won't ever, but it could conceivably last for 4 weeks. So, you know, you can make it well ahead of when you're going to be serving it or using it, and just keep it stored well, and it'll keep just fine. And that's how we make pecan turtles.